So today I have Bill Nikolauzakis with me. Bill, thank you so much for being here. Maybe the best place to start, tell us a little bit more about you, what you do, and maybe a little bit about how you got here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, and perfect pronunciation, mate. I love it. That's
Appreciate that.
not often that happens. My background's as an entrepreneur. So I started my first business at 21. I had three businesses before the age of 25. And then in 25, I started a company called Nico Property, which is a property research and advice company. A few years later, I sold that to an ASX listed property portal named I Buy New Group. And then I went on to become their group CEO and managing director. When we sold that business, I became the chief revenue officer of another ASX listed technology company. Then we sold that to private equity as well. And over the last couple of years, I've started a couple of businesses. I'm a consultant, keynote speaker, but my main startup that I'm running now is Bond Property Lawyers, which is a national digital law firm which is growing very rapidly. We're got to the final stages of the Telstra Business Awards, the fastest growing company in Australia, and we're one of the fastest growing law firms at the National Law Awards as well.
That's amazing. I know we briefly spoke off camera about the law firm growing. I think it was like 496% in the last 12 months. Like, run me through that. Like, so from inception to where you are now, like what were maybe like a couple of the key catalysts to actually grow that quickly?
Yeah, so Rex across the other, my business partner, is a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer. But when I left corporate, he said to me, "Hey, legal tech is horrible. We can make it better and make the process better for lawyers and conveyancers." And so I thought, yep, okay, we'll have a look at it. And we started doing a lot of research. And when you're building tech or you're starting a business, the first thing you do is market research. So we spoke to everyone we could. We spoke to sellers of real estate, buyers of real estate, property developers. We spoke to lawyers, conveyancers, and yeah, there was a problem there. The tech wasn't great. He was right. But I didn't think we could build something that would move the needle that much. Like it just didn't feel like a big, massive company that we could do something totally different. But we persisted and we thought we'll speak to other stakeholders. And that's when we found the problem. The problem we found was that the other stakeholders involved in the transaction, being mortgage brokers, bankers, real estate agents, they were very unhappy with the way they were being dealt with lawyers. And it in turn created a worse experience for the consumer because the mortgage broker, real estate agent, banker wasn't being kept up informed as much as they should be, or they weren't part of the discussion as much as they should be throughout the process. So when we built this business, we built it from normal law firm, conveyancing firm is business to consumer. We are a business to consumer company, and that middle B is our partners in real estate and mortgage broking. So really what we did is we just built a business technology first, but also processes that have the real estate agent and mortgage broker at the center of everything that we do. So we've improved the customer experience tenfold because they're much more transparency. Our net promoter score in April was 200% above the industry benchmark. We're at 92, industry benchmark's 31. And that in turn has created a lot of growth because guess where all the clients come from?
Word of mouth.
Mortgage brokers and real estate agents, right? So we've made their process better, their better experience better for consumers. So they're sending us way more clients.
No, that's amazing. So there wasn't necessarily like a viral marketing campaign. It was really just like getting the products down good, getting it into the hands of the right people, and then letting them do the rest.
Yeah, look, it helps that my background being having very strong relationships with big mortgage broking groups, big real estate groups, and Rex is the commercial lawyer for a lot of the big real estate firms in Australia or Victoria at least. So it does help that we've got a really strong network to tap into, but that only gets you so far. If you deliver a horrible service, it doesn't matter how much they like you, they're not going to use you. And we've been able to build really good tech that makes it easy for them and transparency high. And a really good team led by Mirella Rice to provide a high level of service as well. One of our biggest tagline, our biggest value is technology enabled, but always people first. And the team lives by that.
No, that's amazing. And on the market research side, like at what point were you guys like, okay, this is something that is actually viable? Because I mean, market research is one of those things where people might do it and they might think it's still a good idea. But like, is there something that you looked for in terms of like, was it a certain number of people that you'd spoken to? Like, how did that sort of work for you guys?
Yeah, so I'd love to say that we, being a consultant, probably should have gone through a much more data-driven process. But really, we just had such strong networks that we spoke to really senior people in big businesses and also a lot of small businesses. And we spoke to as many people as we could, a lot across a different section of all the stakeholders that are involved. So, like I said, starting from that purchaser and seller all the way through to the mortgage broker, banker, real estate agent. And it really wasn't until that final stage where we started speaking to the real estate agents and the mortgage brokers that we had that aha moment where we thought we could actually move the needle here. We could actually create something. And the other part of it was we're a property law firm that does conveyancing, but conveyancing, there was 125,000 property transactions last month in Australia. Wow. And the biggest player in the consumer space that does what we do does about 2,000 or 3,000 a month. So they're doing like maybe 2% of all. So it's very much there's no real big players that are dominating the market, that are providing this consumer experience that's really good. It's a lot of small law firms that do maybe 20 or 30 or 50 files a month. And, there's hundreds of thousands of them across Australia that do that. But it's always an afterthought, like lawyers don't really rate conveyancing. It's not the thing they want to do. A lot of them do it as a necessity because their clients ask for it, so they got to do it. They might hire an admin person or get a junior to do the work. It is our day-to-day. So that's the most important thing to us. Our most senior people are working on conveyancing files. So it's a very different mindset. And our goal is not to build a small business. We've started this as a scalable model. We've built it in a way where we can scale quickly, and that's why we've done what we've done. It's very different building a business to be a good service business, which you can run for the rest of your life and make good money. You can run that in a certain way. We're doing it very differently. We're building it at a scalable model where there's no key person dependency. And we've built systems and processes that have allowed us to grow rapidly without reducing our level of standard. So growing at 496% last year, that's very hard to do and still provide the level of service without it breaking, that you want to provide. But because we're a business to business to consumer model, the level of service is really important. If you're getting Google leads and you stuff one up or stuff two up, it's okay. Right? If we stuff one or two up, we might lose one of our biggest referral partners. So service is really important to us. So it's been the lifeblood of everything that we've done. That's how our people are rewarded. That's what bonus structures are based upon. And we've delivered on it because of that reason. But the most important part of it is that we've built this scalable model, a model that is not based around one person. It's not based around me or Rex or Morella. It's based around the process.
Mm-hmm. And on the customer experience thing, it's obviously one of the things that's most important in businesses. Like besides, the basics, communication, provide great support, great result. What are things around customer experience that you think people miss or don't know?
Yeah, so there's a few things. There's first of all, you've got to understand each customer and customer from the purchaser seller, but also the referral partner. How do they want to be communicated? How much and how little? And then when we built our processes out around communication, the digital component. So we've got an online portal that gets automation sent through it. They can log in at 8 or 9 o'clock at night, see where their files out, download documents, all that kind of thing. But then there's clients that won't do that or won't use technology. So how do we communicate with them? So every single file that we get, we understand how the referral partner wants to be communicated to. So we'll have tick boxes in the portal that we build that automatically tells us what communication goes out at what stage of the file. So there might be some referral partners that want to send text messages when a settlement date changes, or they want to get emails at CC'd on every email that goes to the client. Or there might be other, mortgage brokers that don't want all that and they just want the most important parts of the communication, or they just want to use the portal. They want any emails or any text messages. So we go to that granular detail. That's technology. But then on the other side is when we sat down and we thought about what we're building out our customer experience, we thought what part, and this is what one of my keynotes is about this, that what part of the process will our consumers typically find stressful and anxious, and we over communicate at those stages. So a lot of communication via email, text, and phone call. And then what parts of the process will they find joy? That's a really fun part of the process that they're going to be uplifted. And then we try and build that up as much as we can. So obviously to get a positive influence on the client from our perspective. So, when they get unconditional approval on contract, right? Maybe they had a few conditions, that's now done. They, effectively now they're on the path to owning that home. Settlement, we have a touch point a few days after settlement. If we know what day they're moving into the property, we'll give them a touch point a couple of days after they move in, because that's really the happy point. Kids are in their bed, the paintings are on the wall. That's a really joyous moment. Sometimes settlement's not even the joyous moment. It's when you're moved in. So, try and find out where are those joyous moments and, over deliver in terms of communication and things like that at that point, so that they see us really positively, especially at the end of the transaction.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like, yeah, really sort of tailoring the communication to each client exactly how they want to be. And then in those moments of emotion, whether good or bad, it's sort of like amplifying the good and sort of moderating, better term, the tougher, anxious times.
And you might think to yourself, oh, that sounds like a lot of work, but it's not, because it's a lot of work, but it's also, we've automated a lot of it. So we're built in, when you're setting up the file, it might be an extra 3 or 4 minutes setting up that file because you tick their preferences. But after that, it's pretty much all automated. Conveyancers know when they've got a touch point because they're going to get an activity brought up. Said, hey, call the client. The boxes are moving in today. The conveyancer doesn't have to think about every file, what's happening, because they're getting alerts and it's happening almost automatically for them to do that. So when you put the time into the technology and the process, then it should make it a lot easier after that. And the average conveyancing file in Australia takes about 5 hours to complete. That's the industry average. We think we've got that down to about 3.5 hours now. And what we've done is we've given back some of that time to customer service. So we said, all right, what can we do? We still want to win some productivity, but what can we do to make that happier for clients? So more phone calls. We provided direct contact numbers for every conveyancer, which you just don't get typically. Every lawyer and conveyancer in our business has a direct phone number. Just little things like that to make it the service levels better.
No, that's amazing. I think it's, the automation stuff is an interesting one, because it's obviously sometimes businesses over implement automation, which can shoot them in the foot. So like, do you use particular softwares, or do you guys have something custom built that sort of does that on a more tailored level to the business specifically?
So a lot of the communication that goes out, the very simple stuff is completely automated, right? So if the settlement date changes, the text message goes out instantly and says, hey, the settlement date changed to this day, right? That's automated. But a lot of the communication is dependent on what it is. Like I said, there's some things that are completely automated. Other things are more alerts, letting the conveyancer know they need to do something, setting out, and then having templates set up for those things. Because typically, conveyancing is a very admin-driven process, and there's like a tick sheet effectively of things to do, but every file has curveballs and differences, right? So it's very tailored. So we try and automate as much as we can without losing that personal touch, because I think we're just not at a point yet in Australia or in the world where conveyancing can be completely automated. I think we'll get to a stage in the future where a lot more of it is automated, and maybe there's going to be less conveyances per file, if you know what I mean, because the AI and all these things are going to make it a lot easier. But certainly, I don't think we'll get to a stage, at least in the next 10 years, where it's a completely automated process. There's still so many curveballs and variances on every file, where you need a professional to be helping with that. And I think that's the same in most services-based industries, legal, mortgages, real estate, all those industries. I think will become more and more automated in the future. But I still think, especially in Australia, that you need that service-based expert somewhere in the transaction.
Definitely. And I think like every automation, every AI thing, like they work fantastically, but they're nowhere near the level of replacing human, because they have no idea whether it's actually good, right? Like I could ask it to write me some ad copy and it could spit out something that looks good, but like it's actually terrible. So it's impossible right now to actually have something that doesn't require a professional to look over it.
Yeah, so we're constantly building out our tech and refreshing it. And our property portal now, let's just say you're a referral partner or a client. Let's call it a referral partner because it's more complicated. If they wanted to go and check about Jim Smith, one of their clients, and they got 20 clients with us, that have to go into the portal, type in search Jim Smith or find him, click the button, then download his contract if that's what they wanted. Pretty easy, but what we're working towards now, and we're probably about 4 or 5 months away from implementing this and testing it. We're building, it's a product, but we're implementing it into our system where it's a local AI system. So it doesn't work on the cloud, it works within your systems. It learns about your systems and your clients. And then instead of a client having to search for the referral partner, they can literally just go into a chat area, whether by voice or by typing it in, say, give me a copy of Jim Smith's contract, and it'll just right? So that's where I think AI can really help by improve. That'll make it easier for our staff, but also for the referral partner and for the client, right? So I think that's where AI can help now. And it can help with some automations, but certainly we're not at a point where it's going to be replacing whole roles in this kind of industry anyway.
That makes sense. And actually, Bill, I want to ask you about like, the first company that you sold, did you say when you were 25?
I started it when I was 25. Yeah.
And how long until you sold it? What age was that?
8 years. So I was 33, I guess. Yeah. It's about 33 when I sold it.
How did that come about? Like, because obviously there's different ways you can sell a company. Were you actively looking to sell it? You got
No.
heard about and they were just like, let's snap this up?
So my theory has always been that you build really good businesses that are extremely process driven. And I've always been the technology lean. So I used a lot of technology because if you ever wanted to exit that business and let someone else run it for you or sell it or anything, you need those things to happen. You need to be automated, no key person dependency, process driven, right? Because I don't want it to depend on me forever. I didn't want to be the CEO or whatever of Nike Property forever. I knew that, and my passion isn't really industry driven. So some people love property or love this or love, I just love building things. So that's always been what I loved. And I knew that Nike wasn't going to be the last thing I wanted to build. So I built it in a way where we were very process driven, and we built these really good relationships with really big companies and that were giving us regular clients, repeatable clients. So, good businesses have revenue that can be relied upon. Right. So whether you're a software as a service business, you get recurring revenue, or whether you're a services business with really strong referral partners that have got 2 or 3 years of history of giving you X amount of files per month, right? And so we built it that way. And then and honestly, I was not even thinking about selling. My business partner left a year or so earlier. We were setting the business up for scale. We really wanted to push. And then because we built it in a certain way, it became attractive to people. This listed company wanted access to our big accounts that we had brought on, these nationwide finance companies that we had been approved on their property panel, and they wanted a B2B model where they were very consumer driven. They wanted a B2B model as well to augment their business. So it happened, and one thing I say to people is, probably people wouldn't have even heard about us. We weren't a big company. But a big believer in, I hate the word networking, but finding people that are in similar situations to you, similar businesses, competitors, partners, similar industries, and just engaging with them, catching up with people regularly, finding out what their challenges are, speaking about yours. I call it trading war stories. This happened to me. And you'll find that even if it's a totally different industry at a similar stage, they'll have similar problems and you can solve them together. I've always been big on that, meeting with people. And the guy that bought the business off me, went to Sydney, I'd meet up with him and we'd just chat, because he was in a similar industry. Obviously I was B2B, he was B2C, but same product. And when made that change and my business partner left and I'd settled a little bit in, he said, hey, now that your business partner's gone, would you consider doing this? And it happened otherwise, so it was really about, and I've got, to this day now with Bond, the law, a lot of my ex-competitors at Nike Property are our referral partners, right? Because I was friendly with them all and, used to have these sessions and catch ups with them. So, I think I'm a big believer, your competitors, other businesses, keep in contact, understand what their pain points are, be vulnerable, chat about things, and then you never know what can happen. I never did any of it with the purpose of getting something out of it. I just did it because I liked it and I wanted to learn and it was helping both parties, and then good things happen if you do the right thing.
Yeah, and like there's one saying that like it's always stuck with me in business, and like it can be like defined in multiple ways, but like the more hands you shake, the more money you make, right? It's not necessarily like connecting with someone and trying to sell them something, but yeah, you have this network of people that 2 years, 5 years, they're like, hey, I want to buy your business. In that case, it's the more people that like and I think nowadays with social media, it's like amplified that, right? Like you can still go face to face, but you can leverage your time as well through, posting content and all that stuff. But like, have you had business partners in every business that you've had?
Yes.
Besides the consulting, or do you have one in
consulting?
Other
the consulting, no, but pretty much every other business. I prefer having a business partner. I think, you could be really good at some things as long as you're not got someone that's exactly like you. That's a bit silly, but I'm what I'm good at, and there's things that I'm not good at as well. So I always try and find people that have got very different skill sets to me. And I just think it's pretty naive to think that you could do something better yourself when you've got, someone else that's got a totally different skill set, just as smart as you. You know, a lot of the time, I just think it's better. And, you know, I've seen people succeed and not do it on their own because they've hired really good people and all that kind of thing. But I've just found it better doing it that way. Plus, I like bouncing things off people, you know, like when I've got an idea about something, that high level idea, after I bounce it off people, typically becomes something different, but still really good. But, you know, so I think that if I didn't have the ability to bounce ideas off people and work through ideas and work through things, it just wouldn't be as good for me. So I've always had business partners. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's definitely that support network too. Like you said, even just bouncing an idea or like, you know, getting validation on something. Like the reason I kind of ask is we do like a bit of a mastermind up here in the Gold Coast with a few friends. And like you said, all different industries. We've got a commercial lawyer, we got a finance broker, we've got guys in insurance, like, and building, like marketing, everything. But yeah, we all kind of come together and solve problems. But the guy there who's by far, they started a company 4 years ago. They're doing like, you know, 9 figures a year now. And, but he's like, I will never start. He's like, I started my first few businesses alone. He's like, I will never even think about starting a business without a partner. Which is interesting because, you know, there's some philosophies it's like, you know, you'd rather just keep it all, but I definitely think you'd rather have the smaller piece of a bigger pie and have, you know, people that you can build things with.
Yeah, you'd have to. I mean, if I did something on my own, a scalable business on my own, you know, I'd want to have a bit of cash to be able to hire really good people immediately, you know, really a little bit more senior people immediately. But yeah, I'm that kind. And you know, just going back on you just made, it's funny you do that with your friends. I don't remember any doing purposely networking. I don't really do that, but just by you know, who I am and what I talk about when I'm around people, you gravitate. And you know, now my group of friends are really successful ex-professional athlete. You know, we've got, you know, a person that owns a really big private wealth firm, you know, executive at a public listed company. Like you're just around people that are have got similar things because, you know, when we're out, it might sound boring, but we're not talking about, you know, sometimes we do, how did Essendon do on the weekend or something, but it's very much, hey man, like, this thing happened to me at work, and they'll have similar problems or different problems, and it's in us, you know, and we chat about it. So when we're having a beer, that's what we're chatting about. You know, we're not chatting about, I don't know, random stuff, other things. That's, you know, and that not really networking, but it's, you know, it kind of is as well. You know, if you don't mean to network because they're your friends, I've been my friends for many, many years. It is, you know, and a lot of the time I've done business with them, or they've introduced me to people that I've done business with, and you know, it's your becomes a big network of all their people because they all trust you and like you, and they trust and like them. So that's how it worked. Even my current in Bond players, Rex across CRB, we grew up in the same area, but we didn't really know each other. But you know, you know someone around the area, and I always heard good things about him and him about me. And then I bumped into him in 2009. Hadn't seen him in 10 years probably, and he's just started a law firm. I was about a year into NICO, and he became my lawyer. And then over years we became friends, and now we started a business together like 15 years later, right? So that's kind of how it works.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Like I call it the mastermind effect, like in terms of you getting around people that are like very similar in terms of values, and you may be like completely different levels of business, but you're all on that same sort of growth path and you're trying to like elevate. I think it's invaluable, and it's not necessarily something that like happens overnight. You don't just all of a sudden have, you know, heaps of successful friends, but you kind of build it out over time. And like I always tell people, like when they start, it's just like keep doing what you're doing and put yourself out there and try and meet them, and then eventually, you know, you'll have a great network of friends that elevate you. It's crazy because I'm, you know, friends with people that I was like 3-4 years ago, I think like this person would never speak to me. And now like I play golf with one of our clients every Friday, and he does like, you know, 20 mil a year, and he's always giving me the ideas that's working for him. So it's like, yeah, it's kind of crazy. But
yeah, I think I just touching on that, you know, sometimes you hear these, you know, Instagram people and they're like, oh, you know, don't be friends with that person unless they're driven the way you are. I don't believe that either. I think, you know, you're friends with people for their values and who they are. If I had no interest in business, I'd still be friends with them.
Oh, of course.
You know, I don't see that, oh, you know, you got to change your network, or if you know, you can't be friends with that person unless they're doing this that you're doing. I think that's crap. But you know, it does naturally, I think, happen that if you are driven in a certain way, that you attract that, you know, and people like to hang out with you that like to do the same things, because otherwise I'm probably boring other people to death talking about all my work stuff, you know, if they're not interested in that.
Definitely. Yeah, I agree. Like I've got so many friends from childhood that they're all just doing their own thing. They're not in business, but because we've, got very similar values in terms of whether it's like health or like, even just personal growth and things like that, I feel like I'm quite intuitive as an entrepreneur. Like you start to become more aware of things and understand like different, whether it's like psychological things. And like, I just feel like if I get a really bad vibe from a person, I'm talking to like, oh, why are you wasting your time on this? Then I'm kind of like, okay, maybe I should just spend less time with them, which I transparently have done a couple of times. I've just sort of stopped talking to people, but for the most part, yeah, I couldn't agree more. But with the business thing, obviously you mentioned like, having someone with different skills. Like I feel like sometimes that's easier said than done, like, is there any like filtering process you put these people through? Obviously you've known them for a while, but let's say hypothetically, I wanted to start a new business. I'm like, cool, I need a business partner. Like, run me through like how you would sort of approach that.
So every time I've started a business, so Nico, I started on my own. So, I didn't start with a business partner, but I very quickly realized within a year that I needed someone with a different skill set to me. And that's when I brought in Theo Canaros. And the reason I picked him was, first of all, I knew his values matched mine. Like he was just a good person. He was not a friend. He was not someone I knew remarkably well. He was a business associate. And I aggressively went after him, like he was pretty happy where he was. But I really wanted him in, and I knew that he could make a real difference for us, and we could make a real difference for him too. And, I found that I lacked something, a skill set, really property specific skill set, someone that just understood property just, way better than I did at the time. And, had obviously very good other things as well, but really what the part that I really wanted from him was he was really good at property, and he was very analytical as well. And I've changed a bit, but back then especially I was very much a big picture ideas, go out and do things. He was much more measured, so it worked perfect. So I had these harebrained ideas about doing all these crazy things. He'd slow us down, would think about it a bit deeper, and then we'll do some of them and not others. So that picked him. Rex was similar, very industry specific knowledge, understands legal better than anyone I've met, been my lawyer forever. Everyone I've introduced him to has become their lawyer. And I know that he just knew things very well. And we both had very strong networks, but different networks. So, so I knew that together we'd be, from a technology operational sales standpoint, I knew that I'd drive us. From a relationship / legal standpoint, I knew that he'd drive us. And Rex is just a really smart guy as well. So it helps to just get someone in the business that has a very good brain, commercial brain, So there's no method to the madness other than find out, what business you think you want to do, and then find someone with the opposite skill set. So if you're a tech guy, find someone with a sales ops background. If you're a tech company, if you're a sales ops guy like me and you want to start a law firm, then find a really good lawyer, So that's typically how it works.
Like, so I feel like I'm very similar to you in the way, like I'm not tied to this business. My identity is not in the world of like PR, personal branding, all that stuff. I love building things. Right.
Yeah.
And, so like that would be a similar skill set for me, like sales and ops. So it sounds like if I was to find a business partner, more so like someone with some potentially industry specific knowledge or tech specific knowledge where, we could sort of use my skill set to pour gas on the fire type of thing.
Yeah, and we, even at, we initially built out some tech, and we had an integrated solution with a bunch of tech that we got really deeply integrated. But as we scaled, we knew that, I understand tech, but not a tech guy, right? So I've never coded, I've never, owned big tech companies before. And when I was at Prop Tech Group, the company I was the chief revenue officer for, we bought a business from a guy named Luke Pavard. And the moment I met him, I just thought, this guy's extremely smart, and I thought he just understands tech really well, but he understands it from a really commercial standpoint. And then I met his team, and I'm like, just, when you just all amazing people, very down to earth, humble. And when we thought we would rebuild our tech, we thought, who could we get do it? Well, straight away, the first person and the only person I wanted was Luke. And we brought Luke in. He's going to be director of our business. He's, a small shareholder now. And he's rebuilding our tech. So we knew, at different stages of business, you might need different people. I stayed in touch with Luke afterwards, same thing. Not because I wanted anything out of him. I just thought he's a really good guy. He's really smart. So I just stayed in touch. And Yeah, and then when we need to build out our tech, there was no one else I wanted to do that for us.
No, that's awesome. It's definitely important to keep those kind of people around for sure.
Yeah, and like I said, don't do it. You might want them for something, just do it because they're good people and you want to learn from them, and you just I love having people around like that. The old CEO and the CFO of that prop tech group, I still see them quite regularly. The guy that bought my business from me, I was talking about in Sydney. I was in Sydney last week. We had lunch together. I don't want anything out of these people, but they're just to know, learn from, and good people. So I think if you're in and you want to better yourself, I don't even think about it like that really. But that's what it is. But you should just want to do that. It should be something that just is in you.
Yeah, 100%. I literally had a call with a friend from business that we haven't spoken in 2 years. And then, we've both been engaging with each other on LinkedIn. We had a chat today and he's been working in these startups in New York, and it's freaking exciting. Like, he's learning. So he had an agency stuff before and he kind of wanted to get some like tech experience, and but point being is, I know that we'll probably do something in the future. We have partnered on things before again, but it's just purely, being relationship driven, I think is super key. I think a mistake that a lot of people make, and when I first started business too, was just being too transactional, right? I think the value in having those relationships goes far beyond, a couple $1,000 here and there, right? Yeah. It could be something far, far greater.
Yeah, I mean, even I love giving keynotes. It's like a passion. I really enjoy crafting an idea, finding different ways to communicate it, putting together the presentation, and then seeing the look on people's faces when there's the penny drops. And I've got an agent working for me, and they're great, and they've got me some gigs. But most of the keynotes that I do are through people that I know. Industry colleagues, people that have, been partners of our business before, or friends of friends, or, that's where I've got most of my bookings from. And again, sometimes I say that, it just happens, but other times I'm not a well-known keynote speaker yet. So I need to, I'm really outbound now, calling in favors, trying to get active out there to get out there, because I know that once I get out, there's going to be a certain point of keynotes that I do where there's going to be then referral and repeat business happening from there. But until I do that, I know that, I've got to drive it myself. And I've built good enough relationships over a long enough period of time where people, think enough of me that, if I call in a favor, then most of the time people will try and help.
So the keynotes are something that it sounds like you're really passionate about, right? Is that, let's say 5 years time, what does it look like for you? Is it the tech company's growing, you're sort of, on the board, maybe doing keynote? What does that sort of look like for you in an ideal world?
I'm really enjoying all three of the things that I'm doing. I'm really enjoying the law firm, which is taking up most of my time. I've got some really good consulting clients, which I'm loving working with, doing some really big projects with them. So I'm enjoying all of it. I think the keynote is probably it's the funnest one. But then there's, doing the consulting and the law firm is very fulfilling, being able to help businesses change and improve is really fulfilling for me. Building something in Bond, the law firm is also very fulfilling. So, I don't think I'll need to choose that, because I don't think it's keynote speaking business, especially unless I'm a global keynote speaker, I don't think it's going to be sufficient to give me what I need. There is people that make a living out of it, but I think that'll always be part of what I do, not the only thing I do.
Yeah, and I think the more you do in business, the more that the keynotes will come, and the price tag will just get higher and higher. I think it's hard. I've never done or dabbled in that world, but I imagine to just say, hey, I just want to be a keynote speaker, and then just try and be a keynote speaker, unless you've had some ridiculous freaking life story and overcome something, it's going to be near impossible.
It's really hard. And, I've done not paid. This is different, right? And people that say to you, I've done hundreds of keynotes. I have as well, but getting paid for a keynote and going and someone booking you for a keynote at their conference or something, but unpaid, two totally different things, right? Because I've done literally hundreds of presentations. I wouldn't call them keynotes, presentations at events, and whether we're internal events or for other people, unpaid, in my corporate life where you do those things as part of your business. But for someone to pay you, and it's not cheap, right? To pay a keynote speaker, for someone to pay you to do it, you're now competing against ex-Olympians. The last keynote that I did, I was wedged between two gold medal, no, two ex-Olympians. One of them was a gold medalist. And I was
wow.
I was the business session. This is so it's, I've done some decent things from business, but I haven't done, I'm not Mark Burris, or I'm not like someone that's done, that level of things, right? So it is hard, but I think where I come in is not, yeah, okay, I've done some okay things, but my content is my strength. And, people have started positioning me as the business session in their conferences. So yeah, they've got these Olympians or whatever doing the motivational stuff, the guy that's climbed Everest, all that kind of thing. But then they want something tangible that their attendees, their delegates can take back and implement. Yeah. That's why, a lot of the stuff that I do is on culture, on growth, or on customer experience. So these are all things they can take back and that will benefit their business as soon as they get back from that conference.
Yeah, I think the motivation stuff's great, but it doesn't last. My mentor used to tell me, he's like, what do you get when you put like 100 people in a room, 100 idiots in a room, and like with the motivational speaker, you get 100 motivated idiots, right? The point being is like, it's more unconscious stuff that changes over time. If you don't have something tactile, you can be like, hey, this is how you lead people. This is how you grow. Like, yeah, I feel like a lot of those things are,
I think
kind of worthless.
The way I look at it is, if I was running a conference, I'd mix it. I'd have both. I'd have the Olympian, but I wouldn't have just those people. I wouldn't have, and Mark Burris, I've seen him speak, he's amazing, by the way. But the level of his businesses are probably so big and so scaled, where it's probably not he doesn't really give sort of tangible advice that you could take away anyway, but his stuff's amazing. But I've come around from where people at the delegates are at that conference. I'm at sort of not too much of a bigger level than them. The things that I'm implemented and that I'm teaching them, they can implement, and it'll make a difference in their business, whether they're 2 or 3, 5 employees, or 50, 60 employees. That's kind of 100 employees. That's kind of my sweet spot. Those theories can work immediately in their business. They can go in and actually make a difference to their profitability, their customer experience, the morale in the team, productivity, all those things.
No, I love that. And Bill, what's one thing that I haven't asked you so far that I should have?
No, I don't think you should have asked me anything. I'd love chatting about them. But one of the things I talk about a lot, and that I think is, for any business owner, I'm assuming a lot of people that watch is small business owners, is how you manage your people, and how you grow your team. And I'm a big proponent of servant leadership. I think in this day and age, if you want to get the most out of your team, you have to change from this idea of being a boss to serving your team. I made the mistake when I was younger that I used to think that to be a good leader, or to be a servant leader, you just had to be nice all the time and everyone had to love you. But what I learned is it's not that at all. You should be nice, definitely. But the best way to manage people and the best way to improve people, and if you've got the right people in your team, are the people that want to be improved and they want to improve. Like I want people to give me feedback. So these servant leadership principles are really important. And then I mix my leadership style between servant leadership, and then I've got these 2 other principles that I take to every business. Every single person that gets onboarded in my teams, we discuss these 2 principles. The first one is radical honesty. And radical honesty is basically this policy. Netflix brought up something similar. I've kind of edited it a little bit because it was a bit too hardcore. But radical honesty is a policy where anytime you see something that can be improved in the business, it is your duty to speak up. But there's a certain way to do it. It's one-on-one, it's in private, it's respectful, and it's with ideas about how to improve it. There's a whole training session that we do around it. So that radical honesty policy is really important, because I find that that's how you get into that growth mindset. And I encourage people to do that with me as well. When they first start, I try and bring something out of them. I try and give them, sort of almost force them to give me some feedback, so that it gives them the license to do it, and it gives me the license to do it back, because that's how you constantly improve, and with each other as well. I always say to people, if you see someone that Jenny's not doing right, you don't tell me, you go to Jenny directly and you talk about going through the process about so that's that radical honesty policy. And the second one is ultimate responsibility. And ultimate responsibility means that you take ownership for what you do in the business 100%. If you don't have the right brochure, or you don't have, you're a sales guy and I haven't given you the right tools to be successful in your role, that's bad. I should have. but it shouldn't stop you. Go and build them. Tell me what you need. Force me to get them for you, right? Ultimate responsibility means you are responsible, ultimately responsible for what you do. And it also goes through, let's say you're running a project, right? To implement some new software. There's one project manager that's responsible for the project in its entirety. If it succeeds or if it's not, there's a project manager. But then there's probably 10 other people that are working on that project, and they're all ultimately responsible for their task. And it's just about that principle about responsibility. So growth, responsibility, but then doing it with a servant leadership mindset where you're going in there to help, not to, bang on the table and demand things.
Mm-hmm. That's a great point. Like, it reminded me a couple of months ago, one of my team members came to me and she's like, sorry, this was on a team meeting. And she's like, oh, one of the challenges I had this week was that I couldn't respond to my emails because I got logged out. And I was like, why didn't you message me? So, oh, I thought I should have just waited to ask you on the meeting and didn't want to waste your time. So the point I'm trying to make there is like, how I've implemented something like the, ultimate responsibility. As soon as something goes wrong, like, try and fix it immediately if you can't come to me and ask, right? Versus wait a week for something like that to happen. You know what I mean? So it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and it's about, it's kind of this no excuses mentality, like I want to build if you don't have something you need to succeed, you should convince me that you need it. Like it's your job to convince me that you need it. If you don't have a good enough, if you can't convince me then you need it, then you don't need it. Do you know what I mean? If you haven't got a good enough reason to convince me to get it to do that thing for you, then it's not you don't need it, right? So I think it's a really good way to put sort of the responsibility back to people to say, oh, I couldn't do this because I didn't have that. Okay, well, it's your job, ultimate responsibility, that principle says that it's your job to convince me that you need it, right? So, and it just sets the right culture. It's a culture of constant improvement. You want to do the right things. Everyone's working together, but it's not just, bowling alley culture, like, well, let's go bowling together. That's fun. We do that as well. But a good culture is a culture that's constantly cares about each other and wants to improve each other. That's what I strongly believe in.
No, I love that. That was a great way to end it off. That was a really good answer. I've asked a lot of people that question of like, what should I have asked you? And a lot of people go, oh, I'm not sure. But that was really good. Bill, thank you so much for your time. Where can people find you? Where's the best place for them to go?
Our digital law firm, if you're a real estate agent, mortgage broker, or anyone else, bondc.com.au. My Levels GC is my .com is my consulting and coaching firm, and my keynote speaking is billnico.com.
Awesome. Bill, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Lewis. Cheers.